This will be a fireside chat moderated by Lindsay Mastis. We are pleased to welcome to the stage for the AI Plus Career Stage, the president of the University of Chicago. Please welcome Paul Alivisatos.
Hello. Hi. Shall we, Lindsay, you can join me here? Okay.
Take a quick moment to give a little bit of your background here. So a warm welcome to Dr. Paul Alivisatos, president of the University of Chicago, on stage here, not only leading one of the top universities, but you were also a big part of UC Berkeley's leadership in the past. World-renowned for your work in chemistry. He's done groundbreaking work on nanomaterials, so demonstrating key applications of nanocrystals in biological imaging and renewable energy. And you're a John D. MacArthur Distinguished Service Professor in the Department of Chemistry. He has more awards and honors than I can possibly mention here, so I'm just going to mention a couple of them, including the National Medal of Science and the Kavli Prize in Nanoscience and the Enrico Fermi Award just this year. Like me, he has a storied Greek heritage and history, giving him a very international perspective, including on AI. And I'm excited to hear a little bit more about what you've got going on.
Okay, good, thanks. We have one of our students here, Tyler, a third-year student. So on Saturday, I will be presiding over our graduation. And the last thing that I will say to all of those students, the last thing that I say as they're about to go off into this world is, welcome to the community of educated persons. And so, that's the question which we're really going to talk a little bit about in this session, is what will it mean to be an educated person? How should we be thinking about how to educate people in the year 2030 and 2035 and so on? What's that going to look like when we can see this entire economy that has developed here that is using the tools of computer science and so on to ask and answer questions in completely new ways. So that poses a big set of questions for us. I do want to back up one moment and just say that it is interesting to reflect on how did all this come about in the first place? How did this, so when I was a student at the University of Chicago, which was a long time ago, one of my last classes just before I graduated was in the biology and statistical physics of neural networks. And we were studying some of the papers of John Hopfield. That's where this economy came from discoveries inside universities at very early days, trying to understand how those kinds of things might work. At that time, completely speculative. Who could have imagined? In 2017, at our graduation ceremony, we hooded John Jumper with his PhD in biology and chemistry. Just 7 years later, he won the Nobel Prize at DeepMind for the AlphaFold project. He was working again on the statistical physics of proteins and how we might be able to predict their structures. I say this because the education that takes place at a university like ours is fundamental to what the future of our economy is going to look like. It's just not going to look the same. And so I'll just set it up by explaining what are some of the big changes. The university is not going to look the same in 3, 4, or 5 years from now as it looks today because of the power of the AI-based tools that are emerging. So here are some of the things that we will do. Currently, our university is organized around teaching a student like Tyler in the early part of our curriculum how to think like a humanist, a social scientist, a biological or a physical scientist, some math, and the study of a civilization. That's our core curriculum. And we think, well, if you learn those things and then maybe you specialize in a couple of things, you're going to be ready to go off into the world because you can look at problems from many different sides and you'll have that capacity. We will be creating a new division inside the university that will contain computing, statistics, and math. And it will sit in the center of the university, and one of its functions on the education side will be to have a new core curriculum that embeds inside it for every student, no matter what they're studying, how to think computationally. It's not to say they're going to learn how to code, but they're going to know how to think computationally. That division is going to look very different. It's going to be, you just heard a discussion about workforce. It's going to be a very different kind of division. It's going to have the ability for faculty to come in and out of the university very quickly. It's going to have joint appointments with the other parts of the university, whether it's economics or the Institute for the Study of Ancient Culture or our radiology department. So it's going to have the ability for faculty to be joint across it, and also to have people be able to come in and out of the university in a very rapid way so that they can engage with this rapidly changing pace of what's happening in these areas. There are many other things that are in the works here that will re-architect the university so that when somebody, we say, you know, what we like to say is our goal is to teach people at the university how to think. Not what to think, but how to think. So I think what you will see emerge over time is we will have helped people to be really excellent, in addition to all the things they do today, to know how to think with machines, how to do that together. That's kind of going to be the theme of where we're going to take education.
This is an exciting time.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time for students, but it's a pivotal time for universities.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
So, just going through your whole background, because you've got a background in academia, you have a background in labs, in private sector, startups. When it comes to what universities will end up looking like in the future, you're in the middle of the pivot right now, but what is the future of the university? Because you just mentioned maybe even getting students in and out faster. Are we talking about four-year degrees becoming less than that to keep up with how fast things are moving? Or will it end up being a lifelong learning process where I might need to go to university throughout different points of my career just to keep up?
Yeah, well, first of all, when I meant coming in and out, I meant the faculty. So for example, we have many of our computer science faculty are also heavily involved in startup companies that are going to change the world. And they are able to come in and out of the university and to balance those things in a new way. So I think it's just look more dynamic in that respect. In terms of students, I will say, for example, for graduate students, I do imagine that they might have, for example, we have now very deep partnerships in quantum information with IBM. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the students are going back and forth between those, you know, between the IBM laboratories, some of which are going to be in Hyde Park in a couple of years, and our place. So, you know, far more dynamic, cooperative, less siloed, you know, less this is university and that's outside university, far more kind of intermingled. I see that emerging. I will say for undergraduates, I think it's very important for there to be a time when people come together, when they're there, when they engage with a core curriculum in a deep way, and they learn how to think in those different ways. That's a foundational education. And there's so much emphasis on what will be needed for the next job. I need this technique. But what I would like to really emphasize to people is what we're going to need more than anything else, because AI tools are going to give you answers to lots of specific things. What we need are people who can think critically and stand above those things and synthesize across in different ways. And that comes from a sustained period of engagement of people together in a community. So I'm going to stick with that if I can. Yeah.
I want you to pretend that you are just now getting to the university as a student.
Oh, I wish I could, yes.
You know, put yourself there for a moment. What opportunities would you take at this stage?
Oh my gosh. It's a new world, in my view, for students, because I think the ability to engage with ideas at a high level is just accelerating enormously. And I was the sort of student, just if you're saying for me personally, I was a wanderer. You know, some students really focus in and they know what they want to do and they kind of go in and that's what they do. I wandered a lot. I think when I was graduating, I could have, if I just spent my last 2 quarters in a certain way, I could have finished 5 different majors just because I was so, exploring all over the place. And so, that was kind of I think for a student for either one of those 2 students, the opportunities are going to be absolutely vast because they can go very quickly from those kind of early how to think type of things. In their second 2 years, they can think of they can think of the university less as I'm getting a degree and more as I'm in a workshop where I can decide what I want to do with knowledge when I leave. So that's how I would approach it, if as an 18-year-old or 17-year-old in my case, I had the experience that I have from life today, which doesn't generally happen.
Right. I think
students kind of find their own way.
A lot of students are looking for what is the best path for me.
There's so many paths. If there's one thing I would say to a student, it's that your actual path through the university is not going to determine your path through life. There's so many twists and turns that you can't even begin to anticipate. Focus on learning how to think. If you can do that, you're going to find great opportunities subsequently.
And a lot of the discussion has been around a lot of the LLMs, things like that, and you're talking about having students think with machines. I almost think of cyborgs when I hear that.
Well, I think that's what, I think for most of humanity over time, that's what it's going to be like. When we're doing our thinking, we're going to be doing it with machines, not separately. And I think, I still believe at this moment that it's certainly true that a human being who's able to engage with the machine in the deepest way is going to be the most productive, is going to do the most interesting things. And that remains true I think that will remain true for quite some time still.
I was taking a look at a lot of the research that's coming out of the University of Chicago. I was going into rabbit holes, by the way.
There are lots of them. That's how knowledge is created.
Everything from false memories and studying whether AI can predict those freak weather events.
Freak weather events, yeah. Right. That was Dorian Abbott. That was a great,
What has impressed you the most when it comes to a lot of the research that's coming out of your university?
Well, here's one thing I really want to emphasize. This is very important because right now, look, you mentioned, you referred earlier to what's going on with universities. I think there's an immense desire to see the universities contributing actively, dynamically to some of the biggest questions, quantum, AI, all, the issues that are being mentioned and that, the previous speaker referred to. I want to emphasize the importance of how universities are places where very smart, very curious people just explore stuff and the unexpected happens. I want to give one anecdote. It's not from my Chicago days, but it could have been. There's others from Chicago that are just kind of like it. But so I remember very distinctly when one day, when I was director at Lawrence Berkeley Lab, a couple of scientists came to me. One of them was a geologist who studied microbes. And she had been going to Africa to abandoned mines and collecting microbes from pits that were full of highly acidic water and had found these microbes that were incredibly resistant to these acidic, heavy metal toxic environments and wanted to understand why. And with her was Jennifer Doudna. And the two of them together started to study these microbes and found that they had an immune system, a microbial immune system that would edit their genome in order to do things that would block the effects of the heavy metals. That's CRISPR-Cas9. Nobody turned around and said, I want you to go solve sickle cell anemia or to solve how we're going to edit genomes for research and to create the entire biotechnology industry that comes from CRISPR-Cas9. This was a geologist studying microbes somewhere. And that's what, a great university can have the capacity to ask unexpected questions and to find answers that surprise us. And that's like Hopfield studying neural networks, which was a crazy idea at the time. And had no actual success for 40 years, to be candid, and then suddenly turned out to be something that changed our whole world. So, to me, I think it's critical that we engage and support young people who have dreams in science and help them go off and explore their ideas, as well as others who are trying to just understand the world around us. That's what universities do. We're great at it.
We have about 1 minute left, so I really wanted to leave everybody with a big takeaway. If there's one thing people can come out of today with, kind of take home with them, think about for the next week, 2, or maybe few months, what is that takeaway?
So we're in the business of how to know, how to think and how to know. And we are rebuilding the university from the ground up because we see the kinds of things that are happening in this space as changing how people will learn and know things. We're going to set up the university not just to teach people how to think, but also how to think with machines.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time to come all the way to DC to share your knowledge with us.
Thank you.